This is The Minimum Commitment. Film theory in small doses. 19 years. That is the distance between Susan Morrow, played by Amy Adams, and Edward Sheffield, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, in Tom Ford's Nocturnal Animals. Distance is usually measured in miles, feet, inches, sometimes light years. But time alone creates its own measurements. 19 years is long enough for a shared life to become a memory, until something brings it back, and the years begin to lose their distance. I'm Don Lawler, film scholar with a passion for sound. Let's see what Tom Ford is asking us to notice. Let's get into it. Susan Morrow has built a life out of beautiful things. She owns a gallery. She lives in a home where every surface is immaculate, every object placed with intention. Nothing appears accidental. Yet Susan seems absent from the life she has arranged. Her marriage is unraveling. Her husband is pulling away. Her daughter reaches her through the small screen of a phone. Then a package arrives. Inside is a manuscript from Edward, the man she divorced 19 years earlier. Its title is Nocturnal Animals, the name Edward once used for Susan. The novel follows Tony Hastings, a husband and father, driving through West Texas with his wife and daughter. In the story, one late-night encounter on an empty highway turns violent. As Susan begins to read the manuscript, Edward enters her life again through the only form he can control: a story. Edward once told Susan that writing was a way of keeping things alive. Now she holds the proof in her hands. He does not send an explanation. He sends a novel. A story can say what people cannot. It can preserve anger, regret, and desire. And when a story becomes a film, those feelings move beyond the page. They take shape in color, sound, and images. That brings us to formalism. Formalism asks us to notice how a film makes meaning through its construction. Framing, editing, color, repetition, and the relationship between one image and the next. Ford builds Nocturnal Animals from 3 connected spaces: Susan's carefully controlled present, Edward's violent fiction, and the memories they once shared. Ford keeps those worlds distinct, but he lets them speak to one another. An image in one can echo through another. A gesture can become a memory. As Susan reads, the manuscript gives form to everything she has tried to keep at a distance. Susan understands the value of an image. She lives among objects chosen to be looked at. In her home, glass, concrete, long, spotless corridors, rooms that feel less like places to live than places to be seen. Ford frames Susan inside those spaces as if the architecture is closing around her. She is often small within the image, alone, even when someone else is there. At night, the glass takes on a different meaning. During the day, it opens the house to the world, but in the dark, it becomes a wall. Susan stands before it, framed by blackness at the edge of the image. For a moment, she doesn't look protected by the house. She looks displayed inside it, like one more piece in a collection. Like an animal behind glass, awake at night, watched, exposed, unable to leave the frame. A nocturnal animal. Susan has built her life around surfaces, but surfaces do not protect her. They only make the emptiness easier to see. Susan is present throughout Nocturnal Animals. Edward is not. We know the younger Edward through Susan's memories. Sensitive, romantic, committed to becoming a writer. Qualities Susan once mistook for weakness. But the man Edward became remains inaccessible to Susan and to us. Ford denies both of us direct access to him. Instead, Edward offers Susan the only self he is still willing to make visible: the novel. His story begins with a husband, a wife, a daughter, and an empty highway at night. Then it strips them away, one by one. Tony Hastings, Edward's fictional creation, cannot save the people he loves. He cannot undo the violence that has already entered their lives. Grief turns rigid. Then it turns violent. It would be easy to read Tony as Edward's stand-in. Jake Gyllenhaal plays both characters in the film, but Tony is not Edward's autobiography. He is Edward's emotional translation. Loss becomes brutality. Helplessness becomes terror. Anger becomes revenge, and Susan hears Edward beneath every word. At first, Susan can keep Edward at a safe distance. His manuscript is only a story. His characters, his violence, all contained within the pages. But as she reads, that boundary begins to fail. Ford moves freely among Susan's present, her memories, and the world she imagines as she reads. A feeling becomes a memory. A memory changes the story's meaning. The borders between reality, memory, and fiction begin to dissolve. Susan is no longer simply reading the novel. She is living inside its emotional logic. The color red begins to press into her world. Against the pale, ordered surfaces around her, it feels invasive. Not soft. Not romantic. It burns. Then Ford gives us an image that seems almost too direct to miss. A painting with one word: revenge. Susan stops to look at it. The painting has not changed, but she has. Edward's manuscript has altered what she sees in the world already around her. As she reads, the novel reaches into the memories she has carried for years. Susan remembers leaving Edward. She remembers the pregnancy and the choice that ended it. The novel is not a puzzle that lets us assign one character to another. Ford does something more unsettling. He places the images beside one another. A man who loses his wife and daughter. A woman remembering the husband and child she left behind. And a word on the wall that becomes impossible to ignore: revenge. This is how Nocturnal Animals makes meaning. Not through a key that unlocks every image, but through proximity. Through the feeling one image leaves behind when it meets the next. Susan reaches out to Edward, and for the first time, the movement comes from her. She tells him what the novel has done to her. Then she asks to see him. Edward agrees. Susan prepares carefully. She removes her makeup. She takes off her wedding ring. She arrives at the restaurant dressed in green. For perhaps the first time, she is not looking backward. She is moving towards something. She takes her seat, and she waits. The night moves forward without her. Edward never comes. Ford gives Susan no confrontation, no apology, no explanation. Edward's last gesture is the same one that has defined him throughout the film: his absence. Susan has crossed the distance between them, but distance can only close if both people move. Edward chooses not to. Ford leaves the distance exactly where it has always been. He gives it a shape. A restaurant. A table for two. A woman dressed for possibility. And an empty chair. Susan makes the journey. Edward does not. And sometimes 19 years of distance can be measured in the space between two chairs. That's your thought for the day. Minimum commitment, maximum meaning. See you next time. The Minimum Commitment is produced, recorded, and edited by Don Lawler. Music by Alon Peretz.